Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. Well, let's take a look at this concept of automatic stabilizers and fiscal policy. And obviously, just by those two words, you see that something is going to stabilize the economy automatically. And there must have to do with fiscal policy. So that must mean that automatic stabilizers have to do with somehow automatically the income of the government or the taxes extracted are going to automatically change, or the expenditures of a government are going to automatically change, but the effect's going to be to stabilize the government. All right, so stabilizing, automatic stabilizers and fiscal policy, that is decoding what that means. It's pretty straightforward. Here we go. So the idea here is that fiscal policies, the automatic stabilizers, are fiscal policies that happen without legislation. Fiscal policies that happen without legislation. Or maybe a better way of saying this, like fiscal policies that happen as a result of previous legislation. What am I talking about? I'm talking about like there's an economic crisis in the United States in 2008 and 2009, and all of a sudden, unemployment rates go from, 5% to 9%. Holy moly. Okay, well, the government's fiscal policies are going to change automatically without the U.S. Congress doing anything. Why would that happen? Well, dude, if all of a sudden there are an enormous amount of people who are unemployed, that means that people are making less money. That means that automatically, because there's a proportional tax system, that people would be making less money. And if people are making less money, guess what? Governments make less money because taxes are an extraction from their income, if you just look at direct taxes. So if overall unemployment goes up, tax revenues for countries always go down. And at the same time, and that's from previous legislation, previous tax legislation. Well, what about government spending? Well, if all of a sudden you have 4% more or 5% more of your population who's unemployed, and you have previous legislation that enables them to have something called unemployment benefits, guess what? They're going to start receiving benefits. What does that mean? It means that automatically government spending goes up because this 4 or 5% of people are all of a sudden receiving benefits. Did the government do anything to increase its spending? No. Did it do anything to decrease its tax revenue? No. Why did that happen? Because it was legislation that was already in place and it was automatic. And what effect does it have? It stabilizes the economy, is what it does. Okay, so the idea here is in most economies, changes to the level of taxation and levels of government spending happen automatically without any new government action. And this is because they're already in place. So best examples, if people start making more money, so take an example of where unemployment is beyond the natural rate. So there's there's like a 2% unemployment. Well, people are making more money, what's going to happen? People are going to pay higher taxes and the government's going to have more revenue. If people make less money, people are going to pay lower taxes because of the progressive tax system, and as a result, government's going to have less. In the case of a recession, a recession equals increased unemployment, which equals increased benefits, which equals increased government spending. If unemployment goes from 5% to 3%, and I should add one here, right? So in a boom time, there's a decrease in unemployment and therefore a decrease in benefits because people who are unemployed are no longer receiving those benefits because they have a job. Okay, so you can see how these previous legislations automatically work to stabilize the economy by providing people with unemployment benefits if they lost their jobs or they no longer receive benefits because they earned their jobs, or people start making more money and therefore the government's making more revenue from its tax collection, or people have less money and they're making less revenue. So that's pretty straightforward. Automatic stabilizer sounds all fancy, but there's a logic behind it, and that's the beauty of economics. Economics, like once you get it in your head, it's like there's just this logic there, and you can really, really go to the level of evaluating to say what the government should do. It's super fascinating, and I think automatic stabilizers really bring that to the surface. So let's take all of that and put it in some sort of picture that we can imagine in our head. And Jason Welker came up with this graph in his course companion on macroeconomics. And it's super good, and I just want to use it to show you what I just said in a graphical way. Okay, this got messed up in translation over here, but that says tax receipts and expenditures. Okay, so let's just ignore that. I'm not going to go go try to fix that right now. So this is tax receipts. So this is money coming in and expenditures of the government. So let's take a look at what this is. This line going up, this is just a way of picturing it in your mind. This is tax revenues, okay? And this is government expenditures. And so there's a positive relationship here, right, between GDP, real output, and tax revenues. So the more GDP, the more output there is, that makes sense that there would be more revenue because people are making more money. At the same time, if people are making more money, the government will probably be spending less money in terms of providing unemployment benefits. Okay, so imagine there's a balanced budget right here, okay, and all of a sudden the economy starts booming. And as a result of the boom, this output level shifts out here. Okay, cool. So now you have a situation where, because output has moved outward this direction, that what happened? Well, automatically, without any new government legislation, if output is here, tax revenues are up, right? And government expenditures are down. Hey, that's pretty cool. Tax receipts is taxable income from taxes. And as a result of that, this gap right here, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, that gap right there, this whole area represents the size of the budget surplus. That's pretty slick, don't you think? I think that's really slick. That's a way of getting it in your head. So as output goes out, right, then tax revenues will go up and government expenditures will go down. And that'll lead to a budget surplus automatically. Why? Because these are legislations already in place. All right, well, let's take a look at a situation where output drops. Okay, so this is like output 3, and this was output 2. Yeah, so what happens? Well, output is dropped. Ooh. So as a result of the output dropping, we have a different scenario. What do we know? Well, let's start with, we started here with tax revenue. When output was at 0.2, look at tax revenues were higher than here. But now when output drops, right, real output, real GDP drops, tax revenues go down and government spending goes up. So the government here is spending more than it's receiving, and as a result, it's going to have, ding, 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 you got it, you guessed it, a budget deficit. And so this little triangle here represents the size of the budget deficit if there's a reduction in output. And so what does the government want to do? Well, it really wants a balanced budget is what it really wants. So it really wants to operate right here, right? Which is where everything adds up at the end of the year and everybody's happy and goes home feeling good and looks to get reelected. All right, that's a super cool diagram. Thank you, Jason Welker, for putting this in your course companion. I think that really gives you a nice visual of what happens when output changes and its impact on tax revenue and government expenditures. All right, my friends, I hope you found this video to be helpful, and we'll talk to you in a bit.